Thank you.
You want to welcome? You want me to welcome?
I'm coming too, or was tonight the night Tom was unavailable?
He asked me if I was coming.
I
Asked me to remind him, so I kind of assumed he's not.
Go ahead.
He would have if I wasn't.
Go for it.
I told him, I said,
Thank you, everybody, for joining tonight. Tonight's meeting with the Board of Health and the other board members. We're here to talk about the late Nipmuc Task Force meeting. The time is now 7:01, and I will hand it over to the Chairman of the Board of Health, Alan Greenberg.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. Thank you to all our viewers at home. We really appreciate it. It's about time we got this going. It's something that the town has been working on and studying in the background. So that's our goal tonight, is to bring all the different boards together that we feel pertain to the issue of enhancing the lake and bringing it back to what it, to its best. So thank you to all the departments and committees that have attended tonight. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you have to offer so that we can all work together. Jack is going to be the moderator, so when someone wants to speak, Jack will recognize you. The same thing with people at home. Jack will give you the okay to speak so that we have an opportunity to listen to everybody completely. My fellow board members, Joyce Gilmore, Tom Fickner, they're going to sort of take the lead on this. So I'm going to turn it over to whoever wants to speak first.
ladies first.
Okay.
All right.
I'm so glad to see you. I wish there were more of you here, because to me, it's so important to get this situation straightened out so that that lake is always pristine. I have been involved with it for a lot of years. Back in the day, as my kids would say to me, is that back in the day? Everything is back in the day. But I had done a lake association with, oh my God, Larson, Mr. Larson. We had started it and got really involved in doing things. And then for one way or the other, I ended up having to leave the board and have another career. And it just sort of dissipated. And then I think Shirley Smith did it again. So, and now Wayne, are you the leader of,
Yeah.
so, which is so good and it's so nice. I understand that.
That's what happens when you raise your hand.
But, does everybody have one of these papers? Do you all have one of these papers about the lake? Congratulations. So in the past and at the Lake Association meeting, I came one day and we talked about doing, how are we going to keep it the way we want it? And we were talking about, getting kids from different colleges that would come and help maybe do dye testing and that sort of thing. I called two professors of all environmental engineering, because that's the new, byword now is environmental engineering. So I called two professors from Worcester Polytech. I called two from Holy Cross, and one of whom I was like so excited because she had written this book about Beaverland, which I got the book and I've been reading, which is very fascinating. And I think that anybody that lives on the lake should get that book and read it, because it's really fascinating. And I thought she was going to be like, oh, she's going to answer me back. And got no answers except, oh, and I did Worcester State Hospital, Worcester State, I should have been in Worcester State Hospital. I did Worcester State, University. And, the only one that called me back was a fellow from, WPI, and his name was Bergenthal. And he is John Bergenthal, and it was very, very nice. And he said to me, things have changed since you were doing environmental engineering. I said, that's funny. He said, now you can't, they don't go out, they can't go out and do just any old thing. They have to have internships with an accepted, policy and that sort of thing. And he said, and I'm not sure that dye testing, I don't know how you could get that to really work significantly. And so, but he said, I have your name and your number. He said, I'm thinking about it. Because this is what I like to do. So, in any event, as I keep thinking about, because my thing is, our thing is septic systems. And I really am determined to make sure that everybody's septic system is working correctly and that they're getting them pumped according to our rules and regulations. And the only way I can think about doing that is like having like a Saturday with everybody getting together and going, we all take a certain district, right? Certain number of houses, and go to them and say, where are your pumping records? What, can we see them? And you must have get paid for your pumping, and who did you have to do your pumping, and when was it done? Because quite frankly, right, Jack, we're Jack and I have been sort of working on that independently when the pumper comes in, and it's looking like some people haven't been pumped since '06, So I don't know. I'm eager to hear whatever you all think, but I think we need to be a team, and work together and, march around and just say, we need to do this because it's important. It's what's keeping it's what we want to do to keep the lake good. Yes. Well, see, the thing of it is so let's say we have his system, her system, your system, and you all live like every other house away. So you have to have green, you have to have blue, you have to have orange. And then you have to wait and see if it comes down. So it may not be as, I thought in the beginning, that's the way to do it, to see if it's working or if it's going into the lake or doing that sort of thing. But it doesn't always work, and it's tedious, and you need to have, if you're going to do it all in one, sort of, I mean, we can't do the whole lake in one day, that's for sure. But, if you're going to try to do like, quarter here and a quarter there, then you're going to have different colored dyes. And I talked to the guy from Boyer, yeah, from DEP. And he was like trying to get in touch with God. Just, it was like 3 weeks, messages and stuff. And then finally he said that he doesn't think that the dye is a good solution, literally. Well, because of the same reasons, that it doesn't always come out in a timely fashion. And if people are sometimes diabolical and will, so. But I do think that if we could just go house to house. Dan?
So I think regarding the pumping records, if it's my understanding that the hauler is required by law to submit those records to the board,
Absolutely.
so then it should be possible to determine when you don't have those records, and using that, you send letters to those homeowners, asking them to, because I think unfortunately, it's probably just an administrative task in some cases that's getting,
Right.
missed. But I think there's some ways to do that.
Right, and I think-
administratively. And
right.
then, honestly, I think the board perhaps should strongly consider not reissuing licenses if haulers are not filing the appropriate paperwork, if that's what it takes to,
But that's assuming that they're not, right? And we should do that no matter what.
Right.
So what legal ramifications do we have? Is it a must that you must pump your tank? Like, what's the legal stuff around it first? We should first figure that piece out, and then we can know from there what we can do legally. Now, it is nice that I agree, we can go door to door 100%. But I feel like the feedback we're gonna receive from the door to door are the people that are already pumping it
Right,
and doing the right thing are gonna say, yep, here's all my stuff.
Yeah.
The people that aren't are just gonna be like, get out of here,
right,
because they don't care either way, right?
right.
So, but I think we should try all of it.
Right.
In a process of elimination. But with the dye test, can we require them to put the dye down again? Again, we're gonna just get the people that are already. We're gonna get the people that are pumping every 2 years, which is the standard,
A
right?
standard, right,
Um,
depending upon how many people are in the house and now there are a lot of tight tanks around the lake, so they,
Those have to be.
correct.
Well,
And
they're
they-
gonna go, you're gonna have a mess.
Right, yeah,
Where they're failing.
right.
Crack in the tank, there's no reason.
Exactly, exactly. And people,
Well,
sorry, pointing, but that's exactly right.
yes and no. I mean, eventually, what are you gonna get? A year out of it before the solids have plugged up so high? I mean, how big is the crack? I mean, I agree, right? If there's definitely a crack, your water's gonna seep through. But at some point, the solids are gonna fill up in that thing. You're gonna it's coming in your house.
Right, but the other thing is there was a company that was making tight tanks
Mhm.
that were pieced together,
Yeah.
not well.
Oh, gotcha.
That's a whole
They
other,
weren't sealed
yeah,
correctly.
correct, yeah.
Can I
And
say
and
something?
Yes, go ahead, Patty.
Okay, 37 Ren Terrace. So we have a tight, Taft Ave. So we have a tight tank and we also have an alarm. So
Yeah.
The minute that alarm goes off, you don't have a choice but to call the person to come out and pump it.
Right,
Well, you can shut the
So-
alarm off, right?
but you see, I
Why
understand,
would you do-
you're being good, you're being thorough, you're being right. But-
Because otherwise it's gonna back up into your house. Am I wrong? I mean, that's
Well-
disgusting.
Absolutely correct. That's exactly.
That's exactly what we're saying, right? Is that even if there's a crack, or even if you don't pump, the liquid is just gonna come out the cover if it's lower than your lowest point in the house, right? So it's gonna just end up coming out of the top of your cover, but at some point, the solids are gonna fill up, and it's definitely coming in your house at that, the pressure is just gonna be too high. So, and Patty, that's what I think we're getting at here, is that the people that are doing the right thing are already doing the right thing, and that's not the cause. If the cause of anything to do with the lake is from septic, then the people that are doing the right thing are already doing it. How do we get past that and find out what's broken out there? And then what legal ramifications do we have as a community to say you've got to replace it?
Well, I think you have you have every right, as the Board of Health has every right to say, your septic system has failed, you have to
Sure,
do this.
I agree with that, but what is the actual legal discourse that we have, and what do you do if they don't? Like, you can't take their home, right? I mean, or is that an actual item? What is the legal mechanism if somebody has a failed septic, other than the sale of your house at this point? Do we, or it's affecting, even if it's affecting somebody, what is the legal?
Well, then you have to take them to court.
Gotcha.
You'd have to take them to court and say, you've not done this and you have to do it. And the judge would make a judgment and say,
Yes, Wayne.
I was just going to say, that's one issue, but I think we also need to think about the actual systems themselves. A lot of us know that there are systems on the lake that should not be even being used. We're talking about old,
Cesspools, yeah,
barrels in the ground.
right. But that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying, I feel like we have to go almost house to house to say, where is your septic system? Where, no.
Yes. Send a letter to everyone surrounding the lake. All the ones that answer correctly, they're covered. All the ones that don't, you folks investigate. Just like that.
Right,
It stops it in a quarter, a third, you've got it made.
right.
I
Al,
think, oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's, as far as the legal ramifications, I'm sure that there are many, but like when I moved over there, the house that I moved into failed, cost me $25,000. If I have to pay to upgrade my system,
Right.
I want everybody on the street to do the same thing.
Of course.
With the goal of protecting the lake.
Right. So Jack and I were working on, so we were figuring, we've got a table sort of
Mhm.
going that shows who's who's been pumped by the pumper, because he's supposed to be doing that too. He's supposed to be taking that. We sent out a message saying to everybody, if you don't do this, you're not getting a license this year.
Alan?
I don't believe the septic systems are quite as dire as we may think because of all the new construction that's been going on around that lake in the last 5 years. Jack has put together a whole map of the lake and has updated it with all the information that he has as to who has a tight tank, who has a septic system. There may be a system that's a combination. Some people have septic systems for the black water, and then they may have a leach field for the gray water. I believe that there's at least one of those on the lake I remember approving the plan for. And we had talked about, because of the importance of the beach and the beach getting shut down, we had talked about sort of starting at the beach and working our way around, away from the beach on each side, as sort of our initial approach. So we do have a lot of information. Someone who puts in a tight tank has to submit to the Board of Health a maintenance agreement. So they have to supply the name of the hauler, how often that hauler is going to come and pump that tight tank. So we do have a lot of good information, but it doesn't just affect the Board of Health. It doesn't just affect the Parks Department and the beach or the Lake Association or conservation. And that's why this task force, we want to put it together because we all have to work together on all the little pieces that make the lake a whole. It's not just septic systems. And I think if we start at the beach, like we sort of talked about, maybe that being our method, I think we can make fairly good progress. And, we have systems all around the lake with all the construction that's gone on that have been updated. So we have a lot of really good situations. And as we verify the good situations, we can start to zone in on those situations that are old cesspools, some of the properties that have been maybe passed down within the family and those systems haven't been upgraded. So I don't think the septic issue itself is quite as dire as it may appear. It's very important, and it's obviously, in all this literature, it's a definite recommendation that's one approach to make the lake more healthy. So that's why the Board of Health wants to pursue that aspect. But it's the other committees and departments, they have to have their plan on how they're going to approach their responsibility to bring the lake up. Jack?
Go ahead, Dan.
Well, I think so, to build off what you said, I think, what I would like to focus on from parks would be the testing aspect. And I know I sent you guys some information. I think there's real value in setting up a more comprehensive testing program around the whole lake. Both, I think, a combination of some lab tests, depending on what we can afford, and also looking into buying the equipment to allow us to do our own testing. Just again, I think more data is good. I think I had a conversation with Matt Ladwig last week about what specific things to test for. And I believe I emailed you guys
Right.
some options. I forget, basically per round of testing. I think, 6 spots around the lake. Gentleman in the back.
Yep, go ahead, sir.
Yes, Peter Coffin, 3 Old Sawmill Road, also on the Concom, but speaking as a citizen and or a watershed advocate, I would applaud you for, yes, septics need look, but that's not the only thing. And I think you got a handle on it. Try to focus on those that are problems, which are going to be the old systems, right? And if you have a suspicion, that's where you can legally go to the next step, dye testing. Don't do it broadcast. Just focus on where there's problems, or got suspicions or smells, or where there's historic. But I guess my more concern, which I think is a little bit, is the concern with phosphorus, which might be coming from the septic. It could be just general too much loading. It's also a lot of natural forms. So is that a Board of Health issue? Arguably, kind of, sort of water quality for sure. It's how does the phosphorus get there? It's often erosion, which becomes a more Concom issue, but it really requires looking at the whole watershed to the lake.
Yeah.
Right.
I would agree 100%, and that's why I'd like to focus on testing, because something that we don't know when the E. coli spikes is something else spiking. Because it'd be really interesting to say, it's associated with a phosphorus spike or it's not.
Right.
And that's data we don't have. So I think there's a huge value in looking at the whole lake and getting that information. I think phosphorus, nitrogen are all potential signs of, something, animal runoff, fertilizer, who knows?
Right.
But
Any other questions or comments? Go ahead.
Aspect on the legality of getting people to change their system over because the Board of Health says so. You say having to go to court, obviously that's gonna take a long, long time, but what about the fact that they're illegally dumping hazardous waste?
Right.
Can we find them instantly on a failed system dumping illegal hazardous waste into the ground?
So I don't know of any bylaws that we have that are, so, and herein lies the problem, right? Even if we do have a bylaw, and as we run this with bylaws that we have that have money attached to it. How many, is it per day? Can you do it? Then when it gets to court, do they even make them pay for it? Things like that. I don't know of any bylaws that we have anything like that. So
Right.
if you're gonna go down the road of saying like you're dumping hazardous waste, now I think it becomes not a Board of Health issue at this point. It becomes a DEP issue.
Yeah.
Or an EPA issue at that point, right? So I think that when we start to look at those higher levels, if we're going to, I don't think we have any mechanisms.
Okay.
As
Well,
far as,
One of the things that is true, it would be like if you had a fire in your house and you had to move to another place until what was burned and done. That's a similar thing. If the septic system has failed and you have no septic system in your house, then you have to move out until that's fixed.
Yeah.
And I think that you can make that happen for sure.
To circle back to what Dan brought up, and what Peter Coffin brought up about phosphorus and nitrogen, one of the downsides to a lot of the properties on the lake that have been beautified is they're fertilizing the turf with most likely synthetic fertilizers. So that could very well, if the person applying the fertilizer is not adhering to the law. I believe at one time you had to be at least 12 feet away from shoreline. I don't know what the current laws are today. I don't deal with that stuff. But I do know that the majority of the people out there that are using synthetic fertilizers high in nitrogen, high in phosphorus, and everything runs downhill. So again, it's nice to see all the properties being enhanced, but unfortunately, one of the disadvantages of that is in order to keep all those properties and all that turf pristine is synthetic fertilizer. So that very well could be part of the problem, a small part. And I think that's what we're going to find. There's going to be a lot of small things that are probably all together are what giving us this situation where we're having a hard time keeping the beach open because of testing. Back to what Joyce said about a failed septic system. I mean, she's absolutely right. If the Board of Health can prove that your system has failed, let's say someone doesn't want to voluntarily, work with us. And that's really what we want people to do. We just want you to work with us. We're not the police. We're not trying to cause anybody a hardship. We are more than willing to help anyone that has a system that isn't running properly. We want to help you make that system run properly or upgrade that system. At one time, there was a septic loan program. I'm not sure. We tried to look into it, whether the town was still part of it, where you can get a low interest loan to upgrade your system. And then those loan payments would be tagged on to your property tax and spread out over a period of years. So the Board of Health is here to help someone who may have a problem system on the lake or anywhere in town for that matter, bring that system up to code. So we need everyone's cooperation. Again, we're not trying to put someone out of their house or cause someone a hardship. We're trying to work together to help everyone help their neighbor. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think, that's the huge advantage of setting up a task force where you have like there was an email that came through from Ann about, I saw something, I'm concerned about it. You have a group that somebody can bring a concern, say, hey, something's not right with this tree clearing or septic.
Right,
And then that group can then run it up the chain and say, hey, Board of Health, hey, Conservation, what's going on here?
right, or both.
Yeah, but I
Because
think, Yeah.
we are, we're blended in this kind of situation between the environment from the board, from the conservation to the environment up with the public health. So it's,
Yeah.
and I think that you're right, it's so important.
Yes, go ahead.
Tested nitrogen, phosphorus, and E. coli. Only 2 spots, hot spots on the whole lake. And that was down alongside the beach and down by the yacht club. Since then, we've tested both places and they have gone down. So whether they're coming off the road at those 2 spots, we weren't quite sure. The yacht club tested high last year. Just where the stream comes out from where it empties, we tested each side, each house on either side of that, and they were fine.
Lonnie?
Yes, so especially down by the yacht club. So I did speak to the DOT the other day. And what we thought that catch basin was replaced with one that actually has a sump in it to catch the silt, so it doesn't go into the lake anymore, hence why that hasn't filled up. So 10 years ago, though, or at any time, I think was it 5 years? Exactly. Let me get it right. So when that was replaced, we probably saw that drop because everything was running. There was a metal plate inside that catch basin that just sent it into the lake. There was nothing being caught in the catch basin that was there originally. So we probably saw that droop down. Now, also with the changes that have been made,
Right.
that Dan worked on with the highway department at the beach, now that runoff is not getting down, just rushing off of Taft Avenue longer down to the water because of all the catch basin and the redirection that's put in. So that will probably help out immensely with both those. And then with the additional that's being done at the beach now, that will probably also just increase that from getting those phosphorus levels where they
We never really had a major problem. Right? For those two spots.
which
Near
makes
the beach. Yeah,
beach and yacht club.
right, yeah.
One, there is this pipe that's still there, like, I think it's between the old, Nipmuc Marine.
Yep.
It's like,
No, the pipe's still there. The
I was
overflow.
at my sister's one time in a heavy rainstorm and the water was coming out
Yep.
of there pretty good.
It definitely still, the water will still, the overflow water is gonna come up. And it's meant to do that.
So
What
it's not coming from Route 16.
it is,
Oh,
the difference is there's a catch basin there now that's actually catching the silt. Before it was sending the silt right in the lake. If you remember there was like a sandbar out there for the longest time?
Right,
That was, the silt was coming right off the road into the lake. And then they dredged it all out and that's when they replaced that. So now there's a catch basin that catches the silt, which they clean regularly. Along with the other one.
So it's just water coming through up into the lake now.
It's water. I mean, I'm sure that on a heavy storm after, or maybe after, we salt the roads, yeah, we're gonna get some stuff. We're not gonna clean it, but it's more of the, what you're trying to catch is that water that catches in there first, the sediments that settles into the water. Essentially clean water. That's the way they are along the rest of the way as well. That one was just a weird one. I don't know why it was like that, but it was a.
All right, I'm gonna go with Dan, then I'm gonna go to Peter.
Yeah, I forgot what I was gonna say, so
All right.
you probably said it.
Go ahead, Peter.
Just on that, yes, major improvements with the catch basins, but are they going to be maintained? Are they going to be cleaned out? And my concern is, yeah, those sediments are getting captured, so you're not going to see that delta. That's the good news. But the bad news is the phosphorus goes onto the farms. So that's still gonna, whatever is washing off Route 16 from the top of the hill, that's still gonna get to the lake. You won't see it because you don't see the coarse sediments, but the phosphorus is still eventually gonna leach there. So it's gonna take more management, or maybe that if you had the luxury area, more infiltration. So there's always gonna be room for improvement. And just gonna be picking away at it and more testing, and whether it's the bacteria or the phosphorus or the invasive weeds, it's kind of all three things. Gotta be looking at holistically.
Tom?
Good evening, everyone. I think I set a personal best by waiting 30 minutes before speaking. Those that know me. I thought I just probably want to identify who we have here in the audience. First of all, I know up at the tables, we have Lonnie from the Select Board. We have Parks Department with Dan Byer and I'm drawing a blank. It's just terrible.
AJ.
AJ, thank you.
Burns.
AJ Byrne. I know over here on this side, we have, this is the Lake Nipmuc Association. Are all of you members of the association? Okay. And over on this side, I know one gentleman, Peter, has identified himself, not only a resident, but with the Concom. Do we have other members of the Concom here?
But we're not here formally as a Concom. This is your meeting.
Yes, correct.
Yes.
I'm just curious if we have other representatives.
Yep, Carl's on the screen.
Okay, great.
Hello.
Hello, how are you? I just wanted to just verify who we had participating, that's all. Well, thank you all for being here. Yeah, there's a lot of different aspects, I think, that go into kind of maintaining or moving forward on how we handle the lake situation. I know that the septic has been the primary topic so far on how the Board of Health can go about addressing the septic part of it. There's other components, I think, that come into play with regard to the quality of the lake and the quality of the water, whether it be for the beach or just general use of the lake. Stormwater is an element that comes into play as potential sources of contamination. You have natural happenings, as Alan had mentioned, where you have uses of fertilizers that could contaminate. You also have, as I understand it, also potential exposure from birds, certain bird species that can also cause contamination. And a lot of times what we've seen with our testing, it seems that after, for the most part, after a rain, that we would seem to get some of these higher readings when we're testing for the E. coli, as opposed to when you go a normal pattern of dry, consistent weather, the readings fall well under, the guidelines that we have set. So the thought is it because of, with these rains, Is this now from stormwater? Is this now from runoff from properties that's getting into the water? So when somebody goes out to test, is that causing levels to get higher? From an overall Board of Health perspective, what we're trying to do, we're trying to advance the different areas. So one of the things that Joyce mentioned is to maybe look at a little more directly the status of people's septic systems who live on the lake. How we go about doing that, the dye testing was one element mentioned. I will say that this lake is, it borders in a couple different areas. It's a central element. I think what everyone in town would agree is a very important resource for everyone in town. It's a core element for conservation. And I also believe it's a core element from a public health perspective, which is the domain that we kind of operate under. I believe personally that we could push the issue of doing dye testing at these particular residences. I believe the Board of Health has a lot of oversight. And if it felt that in the interest of public safety or public health, that it was warranted to do so to help validate that the conditions of systems are working properly, I think that potentially that's within the realm of what the Board of Health is supposed to do. In addition, in the past few months, we've also talked about expanding our testing. Now, generally, the Board of Health has only been responsible for testing the beach area, but we've had conversations where we'd like to expand that testing to include the lake. We've identified certain spots that we've mapped out. We are going to be proposing additional testing as part of a budget process for us to move forward. And we would, welcome, as Alan had mentioned, welcome kind of a team approach, if you want to, for lack of a better word, or task force, where we have input or working at a hand in hand, not only with Board of Health, but Concom, Parks Department, to kind of tackle all these issues, and also representation from Lake Nipmuc Association as well. Now, we know you folks, as I understand it, don't have any legal element to what you folks do. So I think you folks are predominantly doing this as a kind of as a volunteer basis. Is that correct? Yeah. So I know in the past with the testing that you folks have done, I take it that the cost for that has been incurred by you folks as individuals in paying for that testing? Is that accurate? Yeah, okay.
From the association,
Right.
not necessarily you didn't write a personal check.
Right.
Or, I mean, other than your donation. But
Yeah.
through the organization.
Through the organization.
Association, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So unlike there's no, like you have like in a condo association, you might have people who live in that development contribute X amount of money, let's say, for services, for maintenance for their condo area. That's something that you folks really are structured with. You don't have people around the lake that are paying into or paying a dues, so to speak, or an X amount of money for maintaining the lake property, correct?
That's not mandatory.
Yeah, exactly. You
We have
probably
a
membership contributes, yeah. So we understand it's very difficult when you don't, kind of counting on the general public to kind of come forward. But I hope that we can present a good case moving forward to potentially increase from our perspective, what I like to see is an increase in our budget to accommodate for testing. And I personally, wouldn't have a problem in having the Board of Health kind of lead that charge. I know Dan's kind of alluded to it where he would, we talked about doing additional testing, and actually the concept of even having even volunteering to kind of get the test kits and, actually doing testing from his perspective, which would reduce the cost of professionals coming in to do it. But a combination of the two. So concept of more testing, more consistent testing, not only to include the beach, but to include the lake. the element of moving forward on trying to validate that all these systems of these properties around the lake are working properly. You know, I think combined together, getting a task force together to kind of manage that is kind of a goal. I think this is a good starting point. Peter?
Yes, it's built on in the past because the Concom had usually got the money from town meeting to pay for the weed management, which required in order to figure out what was needed. And then it got enhanced with Lake Nipmuc. And now what I'm hearing is you want to enhance it with more focus on the bacteria, but it makes eminent sense to pool that. So I don't know, I think we did that last year, that the same person that we hired might have done this. I thought we tried to coordinate. But going forward, there's basically 3 pots of money, one small one significant, and whatever you got. So we should be able to get some good, and it needs to be long-term. It's not like a 1-year kind of thing.
Oh, absolutely. It should be considered a lifelong plan. From my perspective, that should just continually be trying to set forth and put in place, because you want this to be in existence for the next generation and the generation behind it to, to have that lake to be of a good quality,
All right, Lonnie?
So just on the note to get started, right? I think that as far as the actual task force, are we gonna make it a smaller group? Maybe representatives from each, from the association, from the Board of Health, from Parks, from Conservation, and from Highway. And now Highway's kind of in a quick limbo here. Alan fell down, and
Yeah.
then we're gonna have a change. I don't mind being that liaison, or maybe even somebody from the select board as well, too. But we can put that together, as well as, does it make sense? So as in what we were just talking about, with so many buckets of money, right? And so many different pieces in this right now. Do we hire a consultant for one time to say, hey, look, this is all the items we have. We have possible septic issues. We have weed control issues. We have the testing that we're going to be doing. Are we doing testing that's in line with what they're testing that they're going to need? What other testing can we do to find out if septics are leaching into the field? Where the Board of Health right now is making that. Should we hire a consultant to get us headed in the right direction? Because we have essentially 3 or 4 different directions right now, right? And we're trying to say, well, what's the best one? We got this, I think, like you said, last year, we consolidated the testing and the weed control folks. Do we also put into one bucket of money that is lake maintenance money, for weed control, for everything, so that we have this?
Carl, then you.
Yeah, sorry.
No, all right.
Okay,
No, I just wanted you to finish.
I'm sorry. But again, do we consolidate it all down to that, so that we have a better focus on it than kind of just running around? And we probably can get a kind of really good input once we get through if there's septic systems that are concerned for you guys, I feel like that there may be, and maybe nobody wants to say anything or something, just because you don't want to be that neighbor.
Be
or
the
something.
rat.
But if you
We should do that.
Yeah.
so make an anonymous drop off, at
Right.
least to vet it, to make
Yeah,
calls.
right.
I think we have a lot of ways to get started here to weed out who's doing the right thing, right? So we can take those right off the plate, and then we're left with, like you said, a half, a third, whatever it may be. But again, to really start to move, I think that, and I'm not saying not to have everybody be involved that wants to come and be involved, but I find that if we have a smaller group, things can move quicker with the smaller group.
I would totally agree with that approach.
Carl has a.
Carl, go ahead.
Yep, I have 2 responses. Carl Hummel, 15 Misco Road, also Conservation Commission Chair. At our meeting on Thursday, we have an agenda item to discuss this task force, and we will see about selecting 1 or 2 people who would be able to participate in weekly meetings. My second point is that a consultant is going to be very expensive. In 2020, 2021, we had $18,000 and we got a report. The report's available. It's not a very comprehensive report, but it's what $18,000 got us.
Right.
Testing, unless we go and invest in buying our own test equipment, is also expensive in terms of going and paying the lab to monitor the water. There may be a requirement that if we are going to use water testing for an enforcement action, it must be done that way, but that doesn't mean we could still do our own testing during the year and see whether there was a sufficient need to do the state certified testing. In terms of a consultant, we already have a report and there's a section in there saying, here are some possible grants you can look at. Here are some possible alternatives. So definitely, if there's a weekly meeting of a smaller number of people, take that report and then you can evaluate that and then see what those recommendations are.
Alan? Thank you, Kyle. I was looking at that page, feeling as though we may have already done some work with a consultant. And they already made some suggestions. I think maybe instead of a consultant, we need to pick a very well organized, very motivated individual, maybe to be the lead of the task force. And I agree with Lonnie, a smaller group of people getting together on a regular basis, things would probably move faster, although, and if it's one member from each board that attends that, they can come back and like if Joyce were to attend the task force meeting, she can come back to a Board of Health meeting and catch us up to speed on what was discussed. And the next time it could be Tom, or the next time it could be myself. So it doesn't always have to be the same person. I'm sure, like the Board of Health, we already have a pretty full plate. So we can alternate if we have a smaller group. I know Lonnie, when we first mentioned expanding the testing from the select board, you were, all for that, getting that taken care of. So I think, we definitely have an interest from all the concerned boards to work together. So I like your suggestion of a smaller group meeting on a regular basis. And the only other thing I'll say about the Lake Association, you may not have any legal clout, so to speak, but you've got a lot more power. You live on the lake. If you have a neighbor that needs help, by all means, offer them help. If there's someone that that has a system that's in trouble, or you have a strong suspicion, let them know that there's help out there. So you, as being residents, can talk to your neighbors. You're the eyes in the field that see what's going on, and you can very diplomatically follow up a suspicion. And again, let them know that there's help. Let them know that they can come to the Conservation Committee. They can come to the Board of Health, and they can, approach anybody, that has an interest in the lake, and we can find a way to try to help them. And that's just going to help everybody. I mean, we're all neighbors. We're all members of the same community. So please, I encourage you to feel free to follow up a suspicion and see if you can, encourage someone. A lot of people have put a lot of money into their properties. An upgraded system is only going to make the property that they're living in more valuable. It's a good investment. Some people might just be a little fearful because they don't have the knowledge of what's involved with having a new system designed, having a new system put in. It may be someone that inherited the piece of property from the family member, and they don't know. They might not know what a septic system is if they grew up with public soil. Everything goes down the drain and magically goes away. Thank you.
Dan?
Why you both pretty much said what I was going to say. Looking at the end of this report, there's a section about next steps. And the one that sticks out to me mainly is this: develop a long-term lake management plan for the lake. Identify primary issues, define goals, fill in key data gaps. So I think that really is the prime objective of this task force. is to come up with a strategy of those various pieces and then bring back to their boards on the part that they can contribute. But I think, that's where we're at right now, I think, is to start going through these recommendations and see what we can do.
Go ahead.
If someone's talking, could you give them a mic, please?
They can't hear you in that.
Everything we've talked about, I think everyone agrees that the main problem to be solved right away is the septic system. So, I mean, it seems so easy to start with the two main things that can be done. Board of Health sending out letters to everyone on the lake asking, give me, let me know when your system was last done. The people that don't answer, then we go for them. And the second thing would be the pumpers, to make them accountable. And if they're not, go after them. But to me, those are the first two things we should be doing.
That's already in motion, ma'am?
Yeah, we are doing the pumpers. We are working with the pumpers.
Oh, you've
And
contacted,
not
okay.
not giving them a license if they,
Oh, I didn't realize you already did.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
And the letters, are the letters going to go out?
well, we can do that. We were talking about either some way notifying people. and
Yeah.
Saying where is, so we took the pumpers that told us where they had pumped. We made a chart and put that in on a piece of paper. So we have a few of those that are like, we call them the good people.
Right.
So the rest,
Everybody's sitting here.
yeah, probably is
Yeah.
true. That's right. But again, your point is well taken. I was thinking of going house to house, but somebody said we might get shot doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it could be a lot of wasted
Put in a
time
letter.
too if
Yeah,
people aren't
yeah,
home.
I agree. I just was.
Yeah,
thinking,
yeah.
How am I going to talk to them and say, look, this is what you have to do, and hopefully your point is well taken.
But I mean, we've talked about letters could go out, but are they going to go out?
Yeah, well, we can do that.
So those are the-
certainly.
those are both
we
gonna be
have-
done,
We have
yeah.
all the houses
Right.
that are there. Did you bring anything?
did not bring
Okay, yeah, because we were, again, Jack and I were doing that, seeing who did what, and
Right.
who were the goodies and who were the baddies.
Right.
Who hasn't done it and who, that looks like they haven't done it. So,
Yeah.
so we were doing that. So we can send out letters, you're right.
Yeah.
But again, I know it's like, that's 55 cents a person and stuff like that. 63 now?
Yeah.
Oh,
That
my
was back
God.
in the day for 55.
I know, we'll see.
How many
That's
are we,
basically-
how many are we talking? Do you know?
Well, there are quite a few.
What's the amount of, no,
Yeah.
but what's the, well, there's gotta be more than that.
Yeah.
There
there's
is,
quite a
on
few.
both sides of the street around the lake, there was about,
There's gonna be
Right.
50 alone.
Yeah,
there's
but they,
125 addresses that I have around the lake and on the opposite side of the street of the lake.
right,
Postage stamp,
125 addresses.
right.
the postage stamp is going to be worth it. Yeah.
We're just trying to,
Yeah.
but now that we jump back over here, we just have to make sure it's in the budget. Again, you're right, it seems like pennies, and it's gonna be pennies, and we'll get it done. We just gotta go through the nonsense of it wasn't budgeted for.
Right.
Now we've gotta add that into the mix, because everything is down to the penny when it comes to.
What about a donation?
No, right, where we can probably,
I'll buy the stamps.
I got a postage machine at the office.
I'll write the letters
All right, Alan,
and lick the envelopes.
Alan,
Yes, ma'am. Also, I invite you to come to the Board of Health office. I don't have it with me, but Jack he continued working on a project that Missy had been working on for a number of years, which was a large map of Lake Nipmuc. I know Wayne's seen it.
I've seen it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's something that Missy probably worked on, I'm gonna say 3 years, collecting all that information and updating it on who has a cesspool, who has a septic system, who has a tight tank.
Yeah.
And that had to be, as construction was going on around the lake, that had to be continually updated. And then Jack brought it one step further. Within the last couple of months, we had a meeting. Wayne was there. I don't know if you were there, ma'am, and that's when it was all put together with a table and it was all color coded.
I saw it.
So this is something that the Board of Health has been working on for a number of years. And it's a continual process. It never really stops because things are constantly changing. So this is just a more meaningful and detailed continuation of what the Board of Health had already started working on a number of years ago. And Missy was the one that, like I said, she probably put 3 years into that, and I may be underestimating that. Thank you.
Carl?
Yes, we had a question in the chat from TL. Did the report we paid for show areas of concern from storm drains? Dan said that it was mentioned on page 9 as an area of concern, and my response is that the lake testing that we were able to get for our 18,000, it did not specifically monitor storm drains. We were more interested in looking at the general E. coli levels throughout the lake. But if we did have more funding, storm drains along Route 16 are definitely the kind of thing that we'd want to monitor on a year-round basis.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's part of what so like for the testing, I picked 6 spots. 3 of them coincide with the outfalls. So all the catch basins on 16 come in one, I think there's 2 spots, and then everything on Taft Ave, and I think there's might be another one over on Kinsley. And testing all those spots for E. coli, 2 different forms of nitrogen, phosphorus. That might have been everything, right? And it's going to be, if you have the lab do it, it's about $12,050 per round of samples.
But every time they come and test it?
Everything combined, the testing, you pay them about $50 to get out of the van and take the sample.
Right.
Then the different tests have different levels of fees. So
And they
there's some
paddle
flexibility.
around the lake.
There's a whole bunch of, there's a whole bunch of nuance. I can send you all the numbers, and
So
we're still
we're-
getting pricing.
Okay, so
And
we've had
if we had volunteers, we could have people from the town going out and taking the lake samples instead of paying someone a whole lot of money to do that.
Right, but you then have to keep in mind the chain of custody if you're considering. But I think Cara made a good point of having a mix of samples.
Wait a sec, though. You just said, hold on, I'm missing this.
So
So you said it's $50 for the guy to jump out of the van and grab the water. Then it goes to the lab to get tested, and that's the 1,200, 12.
no, so it's E. coli is $45. Everything else is 27 to sample. And you're talking 1, 2, 3 samples plus E. coli. $81.10 per, so it's $81.10 per location. I break it down again, but when I did the math on this, it was $12.50 to test for nitrogen, phosphorus, nitrogen, phosphorus. and E. coli
$1,250 per.
per a round of 6 samples.
I thought you
So-
said 12,000.
Oh, no, sorry, 1,200.
Yeah, I heard it.
Okay, all right. All right. Sorry, I was like, well, that's a little weird.
Right,
Probably
so-
not gonna get this.
No, but if you did like every month or every 2
Yeah.
weeks and come up, what's a number that's acceptable? And
Well,
then we can discuss if we want to.
Well, if it's, $12,000 to $15,000 a year,
Right.
now that's a different story.
Right, if it's $12.50 and you do 10 rounds,
Or 12 pounds, right?
yeah, that's
Well, I mean, you're probably
a
not gonna
very
do it.
doable
Are
number.
you gonna do it December, January, February? Are you gonna go in those free?
If you want to have an accurate baseline, yes.
We have to figure that out.
Got it.
And again, there's,
At some point, though, you might need to bring
Well,
an auger to
With
test
this
the
winter,
water.
it might do.
That's all I'm saying.
Well, and that's part of what that $80 covers is they show up and do all the work for you.
Dan, how many
What?
times during the beach season is the
So
Board
the-
of Health already
The
tested?
beach testing it's complicated and I almost would separate it from this. So by law, you have to test just the beach for E. coli. In the past, you've only done it for those 10 weeks plus a couple when we're open. So that to me is a separate thing. That has to be done by the lab. They have to do it by law. And then this is additional data because we're not testing outside the boundary of those ropes.
Okay, so the
Grab the
Board of Health
microphone.
should keep that in their budget.
Yes, that can't, well, unless. it needs to-
Treat that separately from the rest of the lake testing.
I look at this as an expanded program where you're saying, we need
Yeah.
10 or 15,000 to develop a comprehensive program for the whole lake, not just the bare minimum that we're doing by law for the swimming area only.
But
This
that
is-
is an element that needs to be done standalone and it could be.
Well, you have that data, absolutely. But that was my point earlier. So we don't know, like, if we fail for E. coli, we're not testing for nitrogen. Yeah, and that could be useful data.
All right,
just
Wayne?
There.
I just wanted to go back to the big picture for a moment, about a task force. I think that that is a good thing. I think we should consider that. I mean, we've talked about a couple of issues here. There are so many issues that affect the quality of the lake that we haven't even breached the subject on. We have beavers, we have geese, we have evasive vegetation that are being taken over. High water. There are just so many issues. I think if we had a task force, I think that that would be a good thing. I mean, I think every committee has, an association has their own agenda. And, you know, sometimes there's just not enough transparency about some of the things that are going on. I mean, you may be dealing with an issue that affects us on the Lake Association, and we don't know you're doing that. I think we all need to come together and find out just what each committee and each association is doing, you know, for the good. I just think we all need to work together, and honestly, I can't say I've seen that.
Well, I think that's what we're trying to do. Trying to set up, like Dan and you and you two over there and what, yeah, you. And us, someone from every group to make the team, and work together, meet at a regular time. Okay, we're gonna meet on Thursday at the 6 o'clock and blah, blah, blah. And, I agree. I think that's true. And, what I was trying to think about when I was talking about, getting us all together to go house to house that was what I was thinking of, like a task force doing that as well. But, I agree with the letter. I tend to get a little crazy sometimes.
All right, I'm gonna go to Tom.
Well, let me ask, since the concept of the task force, I believe seems to be the first viable step to want to take to move this whole situation forward. Might I ask tonight, who here was willing to volunteer to be on that task force?
Before we go down that road real
Oh,
quick.
hang on a second.
So we have,
You're a small committee.
so we have, so are we gonna make this an official group? Are we gonna run this through the Board of Selectmen? We're gonna get people that want to be on this. We're gonna appoint people. This is gonna be a men in town committee, or is this gonna be an ad hoc committee that's just gonna come in and use this and we're just gonna report back?
I like the idea of an official committee, if that's what you're kind of getting at from, say, the select board's perspective.
Yep.
To have it as an official committee. I
Yep.
like that concept myself.
As long as everybody's okay with that, I'll add and ask them to add it to the next agenda. This is going to be very specific, though. It's not, this is gonna be members from the Board of Health. Sorry, it's gonna be a member from the Board of Health, Select Board, Concom, Parks, DPW, and the committee. Yeah, sorry, and the
Lake Association.
association. I keep calling it the committee.
Only thing is, if you go that route, then we gotta take minutes and do the whole 9 yards.
Well, it's probably a good thing that we
Yeah,
do that in
maybe
the
it's a
beginning.
bad thing.
Yeah.
And again, it may be something that once we get it all focused and it's running and it's good, it might be a once a year type of meeting type of deal, right? Or something around every 6 months or something.
So can we now present names to you to give to the select board?
Should
All right.
probably separately nominate people, that may be
Yeah,
something.
why don't we,
talk
why
about.
don't we get it? Why don't I make sure that the board is okay with doing this? I'm just speaking. I'm only one person. So
All right,
I
but- but
so I don't see an
it-
issue.
But let's just do this, because you know what, you go back and forth. Let's set it up now.
Yeah.
And then you go to the Board of Selectmen and say, well, this is what we have. This is the group that we have that are volunteering to be on that committee. And instead of continuing on, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Carl?
Yes, when you are discussing this with the selectmen, my input would be that the people from the various committees are ex officio, and there should be as many people from the Lake Nipmuc Association and other concerned citizens as we want to have in the room. I wouldn't restrict it to just one person who is not on
Really,
the town
yes,
board.
me too.
So
Right.
no, I think you should have one member. Anybody can come to the meeting. It's a
Of the
public
board.
meeting.
Of the
But
board.
as far as members, you don't want 20 people on a board.
You want to keep it streamlined.
Yeah.
As long as you have representation, I would say, Carl, for all the areas that you're bringing up, then that representation is there. And of course, as Lonnie mentioned, anyone can come to these meetings, but I think if you were to get too large with the actual membership of the committee, that could become a bit.
And not to mention, we saw it happen with the master plan committee. We had 25 or 30 members for the master plan committee. And then we had to keep slashing the membership down to make a quorum.
That's what I meant by ex officio, that they would not be part of the quorum call, that you would have other concerned citizens who would make up the 3 or 4 members, and they would be the voting members. Well, we can discuss this if this is on the Board of Selectmen agenda, and I can raise my issues there.
I just want to check with my fellow members of the Board of Health. My suggestion for us would be, we're all interested parties in this task force, and amongst ourselves, we make sure that there's representation from the Board of Health. But I'd like to leave it open so that if Joyce couldn't do it and Tom could, not just have
Right.
one specific
Right.
member. So that we can rotate in and rotate out based on our, schedules. And if Dan is correct, and we're gonna have to take minutes, we can all read those minutes after the meeting and get caught up to date.
This isn't how it can work.
Yeah, that would only.
You
be
need
assuming-
you need a committee. It's made up of specific people. Like if Joyce can't make it and she's the person and somebody else comes, that's totally fine. But to be there as a representative, but you can't have a floating member. Like there has to be a point of contact
Okay.
for the.
All right, I'll do it.
And that would be assuming we would follow the official route as opposed to an ad hoc type of a.
Right, but I think we want to keep this is very important, and
Very
I think that it's been in the works for so long and so many different pieces of it, like Mr. Phipps was saying, sorry, Wayne was saying that I can't get it out. So that
Don't call him Santa.
the association has worked really hard, and with every piece pulling the pieces that they've done, and now this is all starting to come together. They don't want to lose focus. If anything, we want to get this even more focused and more fine-tuned to really bring this down to the
Right.
finish line.
Because it's been a wandering thing.
Correct.
Right.
Everybody's tried to help when they could. Concom?
Concom, Board of Health.
No, I need
We're
a
looking
member.
for the member.
Yeah.
I will be able to give you a name after our meeting on Thursday.
Okay,
You know, volunteer to take some samples once in a while, if you have any hatch kits, they can run around and grab them.
okay. I think that, you know what, awesome. I think that once we get a couple meetings under, a meeting or two going, and we find out more details of how we're gonna do that, absolutely. Anybody that we'll take all the volunteers we can on stuff like that. Dan, I'm assuming, for parks?
Yeah, unless one of you two wants to get involved and,
I'll just put Dan for now.
yeah.
DPW, I'll put Alan for now. But I'll reach out to him. And from the association? I would just say one to start. Obviously, everybody come to the meeting.
Right.
But as far as a specific member, let's just.
Lonnie,
Yeah.
if this is going to become an official committee created by the Board of Selectmen, you're going to have to follow the usual process for posting the meeting and waiting a couple of weeks for people to try and sign up.
Not necessarily, because these are appointments from boards.
Okay, you're the expert.
Except for the association, you're right. The association, we'd have to advertise. because
Okay,
it's
well-
essentially an ad hoc member,
Right, okay.
not
Just
an ad hoc,
Trying to
sorry.
make sure we follow the rules, especially if this
I-
committee ends up spending money.
Yeah, and I was trying to, and that's kind of the reason I was trying to keep it to the committees was because then they can just be appointed members of those committees. Because again, that's what we're really trying to do is pull the committees together that are already working on the individual pieces, right? Got it.
And may I just add along those lines, anyone is welcome to come to the Lake Association meetings. You don't have to live on the lake. I mean, we offer programs. We have a gentleman coming out from Boston in July who's going to talk to us about the invasive species of vegetation that are around, and tell us how we should best handle it. And so,
I would love that.
yeah, I mean, feel free because,
I just have to be notified.
Second Tuesday of every month at Grandview.
we probably won't start again until April, but please feel free to come. I mean, we're a good group and we do a lot of good
Right.
things, and everyone is welcome.
Other comments or questions from those participating remotely?
It's one in the chat I was just gonna respond to, but TL had asked about the storm drains and issues with storm drains and approving construction.
And I think Lonnie had a discussion with someone about.
Yeah, well, so I was,
Talked to us about the reconstruction of 16.
Yeah.
and
Right,
how they were gonna
right.
redirect some of the storm.
Oh, sure.
That's now going into the lake.
Yeah. You want me to speak on it?
Yeah, I think there's a,
yeah, and then I
someone from the
too on
chat that has a question on that,
Okay.
spoke to us about it.
Yep, so I don't think this, I'm just trying to read the chat, hold on. Need to look at the page right now. Damn.
So I can just add,
So I suppose we can get that document on the website somewhere that I had sent over.
I have I have the plans for the storm drains. That it's worth pointing out that Alan is working with a consulting firm, Ty and Bond, to administer the town's MS4 permit, which is basically our permit to have those outfalls. And there's a whole unbelievable mountain of work that goes into it. And that's stuff that they're looking into. So I think the state one was kind of out of our hands, but all the other ones, the town is responsible for, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that they go through that bring them into compliance. I think the problem with the state was we were at the state's mercy to fix it. So they did finally repair that catch basin.
Which was done actually
Right.
quite a few years back. I thought it was, I didn't think it was done, but apparently it was.
But I think there's work,
But what
progress on
What
this.
she's talking about, well, in the chat is there was a set of plans from the Route 16 reconstruction is the water that's coming down Route 16 along the Taft Ave area down to those catch basins at the bottom is now actually going to be picked up. A portion of it is going to be picked up and then rediverted to the north side, or if you're heading westbound, the right side into the wetland or into that area there that will now be more of a retention pond, if you will, for any heavy runoff. So that's going to reduce, I don't know the percentage, however, that will reduce some of a percentage of the stormwater that's going into the lake now from that section. So that'll be fixed or adjusted, I should say, with the Route 16 reconstruction.
Is that part of the work that was being done with the development up on Uxbridge Road there? Because I seem to remember being at a conservation meeting and the applicant talking about improvements that they were making as part of their thing. So it seems like
Which development on
that-
Oxford Road?
John Menard, it was something to do with that's Rad
Yes, on
Skate
the
Park.
The industrial redevelopment that.
It wasn't part of that. gonna
They
fix all
found
that up?
the wetland on the north side of Route 16, so that's,
That's past that though, isn't it?
well, it's.
I think it goes into.
Is that from the other side? That would be on the Uxbridge side of
Right,
that storm.
That wetland has to go somewhere, and it comes down into the wetland across on the south side of Route 16, and then it goes, yeah, it's going to be improved.
Okay. I don't know that it has anything to do with the DEP thing though.
Yeah, that was just my takeaway. I think they were gonna make some major improvements.
Because I talked to a lady from DOT. I can't remember what her name is, but she was telling me about they have that these new catch basins are going to be very sophisticated now, and they do a lot of filtering as well, and they're supposed to be checked.
I think, Jack, you were at that meeting, that Stormwater Task Force.
Correct.
The stuff, and it's coming from the federal level that they're doing is impressive.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great, they actually put in really, really expensive lab, and they have the coconut shells and whatnot, and they go right underneath the weight. All kinds of things, you know.
Right.
Pretty expensive.
That is,
They won't get plowed up to the rate.
right. She was talking about that. Yeah. Yeah, it was very interesting. And so I thought, oh, this is good, you know.
Any other questions or comments?
So it's gonna be right around here.
Actually.
Hold on. Go ahead, Dan.
So one of the thing that, while everybody's here, we set up through Code Red, there's a specific category for Lake Nipmuc. So that's the alert system the town uses. If you've already registered, you have to go sign back in and you can add it. Or if you haven't registered, I believe you have to go in and create an account. But hopefully we'll be able to use that this summer if there's lake closures. I know that was an issue that came up last year. It's linked on the town website. I'm pretty sure it's menama.gov/code red. And we should try and do a postcard mailing or something so people know, but.
Got a tickle. Mm.
Right, that's the wetland, and it comes off of the redeveloped industrial site, that wetland. That wetland goes across.
Uh-huh.
The wetlands on the other side.
Thank you. I didn't know that was
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's, they're how the drilling.
So this is the north side. I can't see the chat if something's coming up.
No. She said, thank you so much. Good news about the sophisticated storm drains.
Yep, so this would be so it's gonna pick up the stormwater here and redirect it off into here instead of it all just coming down and dumping into, how do I shut the pen off? Instead of dumping into there's a catch basin here, that's the one that was in
Right.
question. The pipe comes out right here. I should probably draw that. So there's a catch basin here, it drains out into the lake, and this is where we were getting that sandbar. Right here, so that's been corrected, and along, so obviously, these are all state catch basins for the cleaning of it. However, if we notice something's wrong and they don't come clean it, we can have our guy come clean.
That question, Lonnie, that circle there near where your arrow was.
This one?
No, up a little higher.
This one.
That one.
So this wetland drains over into this wetland. So this would, they were going to be, so this is where they're gonna be draining this runoff into here.
And which direction are they taking that runoff to?
Sorry, ask me the question again.
What's it?
Which direction? would
Oh,
you-
so the area now that you're, have the cursor in,
Mhm.
that area, where direction would they be taking that to?
So this is gonna be coming off of so right now, all the stormwater comes down here to this and goes out, or, it
Right.
runs up. And
Yeah.
now they're gonna pick it up with storm drains along the way and dump it into here. That makes sense?
You said that one flows into the one.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right, but they're gonna take it out of the pipe, so they're gonna take it out of the pipe in the upper catch basin, send it into that north wetland. Then it goes by a stream, I guess, or a culvert under Route 16 into that other wetland before it somehow makes it into the pipe or goes overland. I'm not quite sure how that wetland discharges.
Does it even discharge, or does it just?
Overflows, it's gotta go somewhere.
Well, I do know that, based on some information I had received a while back, there was a dye test that was performed in that particular spot to determine just where that flow went to. And it was confirmed that that flow does go into that, through that place
Basin,
that comes out
Mike.
into the lake.
Yeah,
Which does?
So. Here,
I think you guys
the
did
guy
that.
was,
didn't
the
you?
dive was put into, and as I understand it, and only was about maybe 10, 15 minutes later, it showed up right in here.
But how long ago was that?
That was done a while ago. That was about at least a year ago.
Oh, so no, that's recent. It's
Yeah.
Recent in terms of, yeah, but I mean.
That was done in the fall.
That,
Right, in the
so that
fall.
is, so I guess, look, they'll put it in there, but whatever overflows in there, we'll still make it to the lake.
Well, therein lies, yeah, I just don't,
Unless they're creating a retention pond. Does the state have to come to Concom or do they just plow things over?
If it's in the right of way, they can pretty much do what they want, but who owns that wetland to the north? Who owns that wetland to the south that was created when the tram went through? I mean, they can put the water there, but if I own that land, I should get the landowner permission. And that's usually a hard part. You don't have land to treat the stormwater. Here, you might have some options if the landowner is willing,
Hold on. Those are swear words.
Because there are monies now, and if we got our act together, we could, now's the time to apply for infrastructure improvement. So it's just time is of the essence to start this, and whether we go for grants, it is gonna take many years, but I think
So,
present something at town meeting is what I would suggest.
so the right of way, right?
Right.
Is humongous. In this section, oddly enough.
Yeah, I can see it.
So it
Yeah,
starts here, hold on, starts here. And goes. All the way.
right, yeah.
It's like that big. So
Yeah.
there's quite a bit of land off to the side of the road that they could, even if it was a lengthy. If it was a long retention pond, if you will, right? Then it's owned by the Thoreaus and then the estate of Matheson.
Well, doesn't the state only 15 feet?
Not in this section. Not in this section. Yeah, it's wide here. Why is it wide there? There's a reason that it's so wide there. I remember being told this at one point.
Well, when they did the intersection there at Hartford Ave, they took off that whole corner. I'm not quite sure, that was before my time, what that intersection was. But the other major reason was the old trolley line went down the southern line there. And I think that's
Oh,
why those
maybe.
wetlands are there. Because the water, got moved. That's not natural drainage.
The trolley line's on the lakeside of 16.
I can just pull it up if you guys want to see it. If I know my login, we can get it. Oh, good God. All right. You're not gonna get it.
There was a structure there at one point, a small
Well, there was
structure.
that was at the very intersection.
Right.
Point. I don't think it's there anymore.
Yeah, and I thought that there was a piece there that was privately owned.
Yeah,
So I
well,
don't
so
know
it's
if the
funny.
state took it.
That's owned by, hang on.
Being picked that up, but there was like
Oh.
the electric company owned or the utilities.
Okay,
Yeah, Franklin Office Park Realty, which is one of Kevin's companies,
Which is what?
one of Kevin's companies.
Oh,
It's at the point. If you,
Yeah,
I mean, I
yeah.
can show you on my phone.
yeah.
I mean,
Actually,
this is the point of the task force, though, I think, is to drill into this stuff and,
I agree. Before it's 10:30.
because I think
Yeah.
part of the issue I brought up is having a mechanism where somebody can bring their concerns and you can
Alright.
say, oh, this is a selecting problem, this is a whoever problem.
to me. All right, so let's get back on track. Is there anybody else, either from the audience or present, that has anything else they'd like to add? All right, so we've got our volunteers for the task force. Lonnie, you're gonna work on that with the select board?
Yep.
So
And
how will
then,
we hear anything as far as setting up of the first initial meeting? Okay,
I'm gonna send that, I'll send email as soon as I get.
oh, good.
yes, ma'am.
Can we set up a meeting now, just thinking that you're going to be able to do everything and we could,
What month is it?
It's
February.
February.
End of February.
Is there any,
So we're not gonna meet till next Wednesday. I'd say. You wanna say in 3 weeks or 4 weeks from now, just to be safe? On a date, what's that look like date wise? Members of the non-committee? 1, 2.
that kind of is, I mean, is this a board that could meet during the day? Depending on the makeup of it? I mean,
I can work during, make.
Who else?
during the day.
Concom rep probably.
Right.
You can or can't. Because I know like I'm booked
You're booked all day.
at night.
Oh, night.
Like parks, we've been meeting during the day a lot.
Right,
It
yeah.
kind of stinks if somebody public needs to attend, so you kind of have to meet at night too, but
Let's get it created.
but yeah.
Yeah.
Lady in the back, please.
Season, I think I'm pretty loud. As far as does the Concom have money in their budget? And does the Board of Health have the money already in their budget for testing for this coming season? Because obviously it's coming up quick.
So right now, the budgets are gonna be so it's gonna be the latter side of the budget. Concom, what do you guys normally do?
I believe we have money this year for our normal testing for the
And lake treatment.
lake treatment.
Okay, great. And then Board of Health obviously has theirs.
Yeah.
Parks, I think, no, Board of Health does it for parks, right? So we have
Yep.
that. So this is gonna be more of, do we have any money left over to do any of this additional stuff that we're gonna start talking about within this budget? Or is it gonna be a July 1 type of deal? That will be our start date if we're gonna be doing this. So, because we're doing budgets right now for next year.
You know, one of the things from a Board of Health perspective, we'll be having this conversation when we meet to talk budgets with FinCom and whatnot. We are prepared to propose an increase in our budget from a testing perspective to encompass lake testing. So to go beyond what we traditionally do with just the beach, to incorporate other testing around the lake, if that's feasible and if that's the direction that is deemed to be the way to go, but we're prepared to present that.
You know, as far as what Dan has proposed, I mean, I would say a number between $15,000 and $20,000 for that portion of it. And then maybe, like I said, if we look at the treatment, maybe we make another budget item that is handled by whomever.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter as long as the bill gets paid, right?
Right.
So that we're putting this money aside for lake specific treatments and monitoring. Right? So that's something we can talk about.
Anything else, folks?
So we don't want to set a date? No?
Jack, anything else?
No, sir. See any hands raised or any other comments? So I think we're good. Motion.
Second.
Thank you all very much for attending.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you all at home.